Before we start, another very, very warm welcome, please, for Barrington. I'm so delighted we can be here at DLD with Alvaro and actually talk about the many dimensions, Alvaro, of your practice. As Steffi mentioned, your practice happens not only in exhibition spaces, it very much goes into society, it goes in a way beyond, the doors of museums, and we're going to have images in the background, I think, circulating, and I think we should start with the most recent project, which just happened a few days ago, actually, where you basically bring your paintings into the context of the Notting Hill Carnival, and that for you is every year really the most important projects you do. And when I visited you in the studio, the paintings had just come back from the Notting Hill Carnival. So I wanted to ask you to tell us a little bit about the importance for your practice of kind of bringing art into society beyond the museum.
Well, firstly, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Steffi and Hans. I think I wrote this note right before I came on here because it was something that I kind of wanted to remind myself to make sure that I say, but art deals with the human condition, and I think we'd like to think that we're so much more advanced than our ancestors, that we're so much more advanced than the first humans who walked the earth 150 years ago. But I think if you ask that human being 150 years ago who just maybe lost a child, how do they feel? I don't think they would feel any different than a mother today who has lost a child. And I think fundamentally we are stuck in our human condition. We are stuck with feeling love and heartbreak for the first time. We're stuck, you cannot jump over that heartbreak. You cannot jump over the tingle of really being in love. And I think art just always sort of is the thing that lets you know, and I've said this a couple times, is the thing that you feel is real. And so if you're having a heartbreak and you don't know what a heartbreak feels like, there's Taylor Swift who could go, oh, this is the heartbreak. And so art just always deals with our human condition. And I'm somebody who really cares about how I feel. I'm very selfish in that way. And I get to make art about what is it that I'm excited about? Or what am I hurt about? Or what do I feel angry about? And then I go and I make something. And then I think it becomes art because other people have to feel it. So Taylor Swift is real because millions of people feel her heartbreak. I think anything else, if it's just me making paintings in my bedroom and nobody feels it, then it's just masturbation. And there's nothing wrong with masturbation, obviously. I'm pretty sure most of us do it. But I like sex. And so it's about being with other people. And so I like to put my work in places, whether that's a gallery or a museum or a Notting Hill Carnival, where I go, oh, this thing that I feel is real. Do you feel it too? And so I go to Carnival every year. It's a big part of culture. 2 million people in London show up every year. So I just thought, I love it. It's so exciting. And so I just thought maybe I need to put my painting in Carnival. Because the thing with the trucks is that you have this millions of people walking by, and if it's interesting, they'll stop, and they'll look, and maybe they'll dance. And so I always go, ooh, I love dancing, I love music, so how can I make art that makes somebody go, wow, I want to dance?
And that's what we can see now, no? These amazing images of people dancing around your truck. And the involvement you have with the Notting Hill Carnival is important because you're also supporting this to happen. You're very involved. It's a whole support system, and you said before, that you need to be excited. It's something you're deeply excited about. There was a whole studio full of work which came back. Can you tell us about what you exactly do, how the truck works? You do lots of paintings, and then there is interaction.
Well, every year I try to have a new theme because I'm really a nerd. You know, I can go and look at a Titian painting for hours and feel deeply moved. Or Matisse. And so I love Matisse. I'm like, wow, look how brilliant this guy is. And I was watching his cutouts, but then I just thought, well, what does that mean that I'm so into Matisse? But, you know, so I went and I looked at some of his cutouts, and then I tried to make it contemporary. And then we did it, you know, we work with different trucks on the road. It's extremely expensive to get a truck on the road because you have to cover insurance, for example. You have to rent a truck. It's like, you know, a lot of money. And so we often are able to, I'm very fortunate that I have a decent career. And so we're able to sell some paintings, put it up in the truck. And then the paintings become alive for me when I get to see people stand around and dance and have a good time. Because I want to die having a good time. You ever listen to Quincy Jones talk about when Michael Jackson tried to run over Prince? I love those stories. I'm like, wow, I want to be there.
So we talk about your paintings, we talk about Notting Hill Carnival. There is, of course, also your connection to technology. It's always a very human connection, as you mentioned before, to technology. And it's actually, after the lockdown, you did a whole series of paintings, which premiered at the South London Gallery, where you really looked at where we are in terms of the digital, how we are getting there. And you kind of wanted to look at it from your experience, as you said at the time, of someone who is in his early 40s. Kind of social media arrived when you were in college. But you kind of wanted to look at it also from the perspective of somebody who is kind of born into this digital age. Can you talk a little bit about how you channel this digital experience into the paintings?
I think we're at a really incredible moment technologically. I think AI, all of that is going to solve so many issues. I think if you're like maybe 80 years old and you have an AI companion, you may not die from loneliness because you have someone who you could talk to. But I deeply believe in the human experience of trying to learn how to see the world through my partner's eyes or see the world through somebody else's eyes. I think of it like you know, imagine you've heard a song 1,000 times, but you never really paid attention to it. And then one day your friend said, have you really listened to this song? And then you listen, you're like, oh yeah, it's an okay song. But then the next time you hear it, you're like, wow, I really like that song. So then you listen to the album, and then you listen to the genre of music. I feel like the way our world goes from just ourselves as subjective human beings to much larger experiences is by opening up ourselves to other people's reality and truths. And art is a great way to get there. But I think what AI will do, and I think we're sort of in this really weird early phase of AI, where I think, you know, we've discovered fire, and now everybody's just sort of seeing how big the fire could get. But nobody is imagining the chef will come out of the fire that we just cooked. And I'm really interested in, once we sort of, because I want to be an interesting and important artist. So the idea for me, the challenge for me is like, well, what does it mean that we'll be dealing with such a fundamental technological change? And can I be an artist who says, you know, that fire everybody's been throwing sticks and wood in? I have something, let's just throw this buffalo meat on here, and then we have steak. And look how good it tastes. And I just think if I am to be an interesting artist, I'll maybe say that fire could be used for something interesting.
And you think that that's, in a way, going to happen in the future? You once told me that, you know, technology now sometimes is an oppressive force, but you feel that maybe there is this possibility that actually can help us now solve problems. And you look, of course, into that, for example, when you work with BMW on the hydrogen car. I think that was a very interesting moment where you kind of engaged with technology in this wonderful collaboration, actually, which happened over the last year. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because of course the car is here, so people can also, for those who haven't seen it yet, you can actually see Alvaro's project for the hydrogen car of BMW. But you worked out very closely with the engineers, you worked very closely, of course, with Hedwig. It was a whole collaboration with BMW, but also with the scientific and technological material.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it's been an honor to just sort of be in conversation with, because the reality is in 5 years, maybe sooner, maybe 10 years, most cars will be self-driving. And that means that you'll trust your car to pick up your grandma, you'll trust your car to pick up your kid. And so that means that your kid will probably have an AI companion, and your kid will get into the car, and the car will know that your kid had a really bad day. And it will probably speak to your kid in a way that's really special. But then, what does that mean for you as a mother, you as a father? And so you have to find a new way to really connect with your kid. And I think those nuances are really special. And that's where the art will come in. The new art that sort of erases the things that are unessential. I mean, how many kids have been fucked up by their parents? That's most of the world. But now you have an AI that'll probably know that, that will probably tell the parent, hey, by the way, by the time your kid comes home, they've had a bad day. Here's something you should maybe say to them. Because in your AI will be the knowledge of all the parents who have ever put any information into the internet. And so I think we'll just have to find new ways to sort of really connect. And I'm just really interested in what those connections are. What are those ways that we feel really invested in each other? Because I think, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie 40-Year-Old Virgin, but there was a scene where Steve Carell's character, everybody was talking about sex, and Steve Carell's character started talking about, yeah, I know, I've had sex, breasts, it feels like a bag of sand. And that's when everybody knew that he didn't have a real experience. And I think being with each other will have so much more value in a real way that AI will feel like a bag of sand. Because there's just something deeply emotional about seeing someone's face, touching someone's hands, crying with someone. All of those things are just so much built into millions of years of evolution that cannot be replaced.
And it's interesting because Ian Chang, the artist who was also here at DLD, who at the Serpentine launched his AI project, Bob, Bag of Beliefs, he decided that he actually, in order to create this sort of empathy with technology, needed to start his own company. And I think there is two possibilities right now for an artist. Some artists start their own companies, they become entrepreneurs, and he's developing now his own products actually to create this empathy. And the other possibility is, of course, that artists work with existing companies, and that's the model of John Latham and Barbara Stevini, who said every company, every corporation, every brand, also every government should have an artist in residence, should have an artist on the board. And I think it's fascinating, right? We should explore both of these possibilities right now. Here, by the way, the basketball court for actually which you created for the London Lions, right? We're going to talk about that later. But you have this experience actually to work with a company, with BMW, and you said that you kind of realized that car companies will become entertainment companies.
Yeah.
You also felt that the car of the future, mobility, is becoming our version of the Star Trek Enterprise. Tell us more.
I used to work retail. I worked at an electronics store, And I remember the moment that Sony went from making hardware to bringing out the PlayStation. And I thought that was really brilliant. I thought it, Sony realized it needed to sort of transition to software. And this is like the 90s. So, and then obviously Apple did the same thing. I think BMW will probably have to be an entertainment company as well, because it will have to offer something that's really unique to what it means to just get it. If you're no longer just driving the car is driving itself. Technology will sort of equalize. The reality is a lot of the cars will just have like very similar feel and ride, and so I think it will have to sort of figure out what makes it unique, which is a really interesting concept. What makes a company unique? And then how do you trust that company? I think many companies are already having those conversations.
And in order to do so, I firmly believe, companies do need artists.
Yes.
And we want to maybe talk about the last topic here, because you have here these London Lions basketball clubs. It's a partnership, actually, between the Serpentine, an art organization, and the London Lions, of the most important basketball clubs in the UK, co-commissioning you to do this card. And I think there's two things in this which are really relevant for now. One is this idea of new alliances. We create, unexpected partnership, a sports club and an art, museum. But then the second thing, which maybe is even more important, is this idea to bring worlds together. We live in a very polarized society. Lots of people don't talk to each other anymore. And I firmly believe that it's important today that we find possibilities to kind of get worlds who usually don't talk to each other, to talk to each other. Here, in this case, the world of contemporary art and the world of basketball. We then continued this experience actually this summer in Manchester with an exhibition, football and art, bringing football and art together for the Manchester International Festival at the factory. But let's maybe talk first about what you did here with the London Lions, because it's amazing how communities met, how the local communities met, the basketball community met, the art world met.
Well, I'm just interested, like I make so that I could understand life. And I grew up watching Michael Jordan play in New York. And I think one of the trajectories of the last 100 years, maybe 150 years, was the creation of a nation state, right? You had like all these small villages killing each other. And then the idea of creating a nation state said, oh, we could unite everybody under being American or British or whatever. I think we've moved past that, in that now people live in a culture state. And so you could have two brothers or two sisters, two siblings. One may belong to a football culture state, and another may belong to a K-pop cultural state. And they'll have nothing in common with each other, except that they are biologically connected. But they'll have everything in common with the person who gets every song from a K-pop. And that person could be in Mexico, person could be in, and you'll kind of know, oh, we all belong to the same culture state. And so I'm really interested in like, what are those culture states that are being formed? You see it when you see footballers, you see it when sports is probably the most recognized culture state. So I'm just really interested in, as an artist, how do you kind of participate in the creation of new culture states?
And with football, maybe we can talk about Manchester as the last question. It's kind of fascinating because with collaborator Josh Wild, we realized that actually Juan Mata followed me on Instagram, the famous player of the Spanish national team and former Manchester United, and so we started to discuss with him about his interest in art, and then decided to co-curate the show to always bring a footballer and an artist together. And you decided to work with Rai and created this idea of a kind of an expanded painting. Can you tell us about what you did there?
I did a cross. It was sort of like a football field turned into a cross, because I think, Hai told me the story about the number of people who would walk up to him and tell him, I was there at your last game. And it was really interesting because he said, the stadium isn't that big. There could only be so much people there. But I thought, how many people remember seeing how he scored that goal versus other memories that may not necessarily, be fundamental to what we consider being a human being. There may be some people, quite honestly, who may not remember their kid's birthday, but they will remember how he's scoring that goal. And so I just thought it'd be really interesting to explore how those things form how we understand the time that we've spent between life and death.
There could not be a better conclusion. And now, before you actually later on this afternoon, this evening, leave the building, please do not miss the amazing hydrogen vehicle of BMW, which Alvaro realized in very close collaboration with Michael Rath, who is head of hydrogen vehicles at BMW. Alvaro, thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Oh, man, I'm always nervous about these things.